So we want overspin. Sometimes neutral spin's okay. It would depend a little bit on the greens that you're playing on. If every time we step, every time we walk, we're making a footprint. Dave Pelz was a legendary putting coach way back when, and he actually did some analysis, and every time someone stepped on the green, it would actually take about approximately 24 hours is what they found out for a footprint to come back and make the green flat. So every time you step, hundreds and hundreds of people have stepped on the green, maybe stepped in your line, there's going to be footprints. You've got to get the ball up in the air, out of that footprint, and get it rolling. And if you want to go from a complete science, a complete physics standpoint, the weight of that ball is going to make an indentation in the green. So we've got to get the ball up in the air slightly, above these footprints, traveling a little bit, and then rolling end over end. If you actually have too much overspin, it could actually hit the front of the footprint. If this is the indentation in the green, the ball's sitting here, and you have too much overspin, it could actually hit the front of the footprint and actually start bouncing, which is not what you would actually want and contrary to what you'd think. That's why it's important to get the ball up in the air slightly above it and then start rolling end over end. Different green speeds call for different impact conditions. If the grass is really long, we need to get the ball up in the air a little bit more. There's a reason if you look at a lot of really old players, Arnold Palmer back in the day, Ben Hogan, they stood really close and they actually used a lot of wrist. Everybody you hear talk about putting now says don't use your wrist. They actually used the wrist because they needed to get the ball actually up in the air because the grass was so long. If the green's perfect like a pool table, well then you just can roll it with as much overspin as you possibly can. So on the PGA Tour, for example, when they play out in California, the greens are Pro-Ana, they're sort of bumpy, they're sort of grainy, they always get bumpy from footprints. So you actually need to get the ball up in the air because remember, we said you need to get the ball out of the indentation that it's sitting in. If the indentations are bigger, you need to get the ball up in the air a little bit more. So legend has it that Tiger would actually put the ball slightly further forward when he would play in California so he could launch the ball slightly higher. When he would play at Augusta, at the Masters, or maybe the Memorial in Ohio, Jack Nicklaus tournament, he would actually put the ball slightly back. So remember, if I put the ball slightly further forward, I can launch the ball slightly higher. If I put the ball slightly, this is pretty far back, but if I put the ball further back and still have my hands in the same place, now I've got not much loft. Again, that's going to create overspin, but I don't have to get the ball up in the air as much. Bryson DeChambeau, I've heard, actually has different putters with different lofts, and he changes them. Obviously, he's very into science and very into actually knowing everything about the greens and the wind and everything. He actually has putters with different lofts, and he changes those putters based on the conditions for that week. If the greens are fast, if the greens are slow, potentially if it's windy, potentially if it's wet, things of that nature. So remember, the most important thing is to get those conditions right, and different surfaces will change what you need to do to create that environment that you're trying to do.